Hey guys, this is Lala Legacy and welcome back to another episode of Symphonic Rain. So before we jump in, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because that would mean the whole world to me, and after this video, if you like it, hit that like button too. Alright, let's get in. There was only the sound of the pouring rain clinging to my ears, giving no sign of letting go. I had searched around the school grounds once again yesterday, but I was unable to find Lisa. This would be the third day, but she's been absent from school all this time. Even so, all I could do was wander around school in the hopes that Lisa would eventually show up. In between classes, I would visit class 1-2 and ask people whether or not Lisa had shown up. During classes, I killed the time elsewhere. Engaged in that cycle, I was now loitering around the old school building. Part of the reason I came all the way here was because I might run into Torta during lunch break. I wouldn't know what to talk about if I saw her. I probably looked desperate. Torta would pick up on that immediately. Hence, I had almost unconsciously wandered to this place. I tried to open the door, but like Miss Cordell had told me way back when, it was locked. I spent the time doing nothing but waiting for lunch break to end, then went back to the main building. Come to think of it, Graves' lecture was supposed to be today. That honors student and I were already dropped during the second lecture, so lecture room 2 should be vacant right now. But when I passed by lecture room 2, I could hear the faint sound of a foretell. I wondered if Grave was composing some piece by himself like Miss Cordell had said. I thought for a moment that it probably had nothing to do with Lisa, but soon realized that chances were actually surprisingly high that it did. Why couldn't she sing? What had made her think she couldn't? Why didn't I realize sooner that Grave might be involved in this? I quietly opened the back door of the room and peeked inside. I would surely look suspicious to anyone passing by, but since classes were in session, there didn't seem to be anyone around. And most seniors, who didn't have classes, were busy practicing in the practice rooms. What's wrong? I said it was okay to play that piece you love so much. How about looking a bit more pleased? The sound of Lisa's foretell resounded through the small lecture room. As I was about to enter, the tones came crashing against the door with enough force to stop me. If I had to describe the emotions embedded into those notes with a single word, it would be sorrow. Although Miss Cordell and Forney had expressed it as being a love song, I could only hear a tragic melody now. And the girl behind the foretell was the very personification of tragedy. The staff propping up her chin was digging into her throat. Lisa seemed to be in pain because of it. Even so, she didn't cease her performance. Be it Graves' method of teaching or not, Lisa didn't show any signs of resistance. The melody continued as I watched the scene before me in awe. When I finally came to my senses, I swung open the door with all my might. Trying my best to suppress my emotions, I calmly walked up to them. Grave didn't reprimand me at all for my discourtesy. What do you think you're doing? A private lesson. I made room in my schedule for this lecture, but with no students to instruct, I decided to at least make efficient use of my time. What's with the staff? Does that have anything to do with your lesson? Grave loosened his grip on the staff, resting against Lisa's throat. Actually, I was mistaken. He put even more strength into his arm, pushing Lisa backward as she let out a shriek. Huh? Excellent music is born from excellent posture. This is necessary to straighten the spinal column. Bullshit! I was surprised by how loud my voice was. What would you know? Silence yourself. Lise, let's go. There's no need for you to be here. You will be the one to leave, Chris Verton. Gray finally removed the staff from Lise's throat and faced me. For what purpose have you come? You are no longer qualified to follow my lectures. Lise? I'm sorry. It's okay. We'll talk about this later. LISE'S. Yes? I want to have a word with this insolent young man. Leave. Come back in 30 minutes. Yes? Lise! I am sorry. She averted her eyes and left the lecture room. Chris Verton, you should feel privileged. I seldom put aside my precious time for a student. I completely ignored what he said and turned to go after Lise when he spoke to me once more. LISE'S can no longer sing. Give it up. He spat out those words mockingly, but there seemed to be an unshakable conviction in his voice. He surely knew about Lise and I's increasingly close relationship. So why was he so convinced about his case? It also bothered me that he said she can no longer sing rather than she will no longer sing. What do you mean by that? I replied with carefully chosen words. I could go after Lise any time. Unlike last time, she would probably come back here. And while Graves' provocative words and attitude pissed me off, it was likely better to talk to him while I could. Exactly the way I said it. She has been rather disobedient lately, you see, so it was necessary to facilitate some discipline. It seems to have had effect. Discipline? My God, I could hardly believe someone of the Cesarini namesake would be carrying out ensembles with a third-rate commoner like you. What do you mean by discipline? What's more, disregarding the miraculous ability she has been blessed with, she has taken up singing. I was so worried about her future I could barely help myself. Mr. Grave, would you kindly answer my question? Of what use is a throat for playing the fortel? No worries, I didn't do much. I merely applied a bit of pressure. That seems to have done the trick. Grave raised his arms to eye level, then formed a small circle with both of his hands, and made motions as though gripping something thick. Yes, something about the size of a neck. LISE'S was in error for making me take measure beyond what happened before. What are you talking about? What happened before? A fortellist ultimately has no need for feet. All they have to do is sit on a bench. Graves stopped talking and sneered, as though he had told some clever joke. The meaning behind his words slowly began to sink in. It could only mean one thing. But I still couldn't believe it. Was that really something a parent would do to their child? Isn't she your daughter? Only on paper. I picked her up from an orphanage so I could raise her to be my successor. That is her only purpose. Why should I hold back? What you're doing is incriminating. And what are you going to do about it? No one will listen to the likes of you. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this little chat in the first place. Do you understand now? You and LISE'S live in different worlds. You'd better mind yourself, boy, lest bad things might happen. I'm not afraid of you. I'll do as I please. When did I say that bad things would happen to you? Do you intend to hurt Lise further? If need be. It seemed I had the wrong impression about him until now. I originally thought he was a great musician. He had a rigid facade, but I respected him on a musical level. But in reality, all I could see now was some sadistic, deranged aristocrat. A wretched attention-seeker who cared only about himself, the very epitome of arrogance. Whether this creature had been brought into being by this country's government or culture I didn't know, but I had lost any and all respect for this man. Well, do you understand? I would have walked out of there frickin' both middle fingers up at him. I completely ignored him and left the lecture room. I had the feeling I heard some reprimanding words behind me as I left, but I couldn't care less. Where would Lise be right now? Perhaps some reprise she could retreat to when running away from that man. But that place was locked. She couldn't go inside. That would mean she was waiting outside in the rain. It didn't even cross my mind that she had gone somewhere else. Trudging through the muddy soil, I was getting closer to Lise step by step. I couldn't see her yet, but she was definitely here. Lise! Liselcia! Senpai! Lise stood reclined against the door to the old school building, shivering from the cold. Come on, let's go back to my place. Go back? That's right, I have to go back. Yeah. Father is waiting. Lise! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I won't sing again. I won't disobey you again. Lise wasn't looking at me. She was shaking her head in fear, stringing together apology after apology in a small voice. Lise, listen to me. You don't need to go back to grave. Let's go home now. I'm sorry. I won't ever sing again. Eyes downcast, Lise continued her delirious mutterings. Wanting her to look me in the eyes, I placed my hands on her shoulders. No! Lise! I no longer let her violent reactions startle me. Mustering up my courage, I tightly gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at me. And her eyes locked onto mine. Senpai! Listen to me. You don't have to go back to grave. You can sing as much as you like. I won't allow you to get hurt ever again, so won't you come with me? But... Lise shrank backwards in fear, but she couldn't get far. She was pinned against the door and had nowhere to run. Her hands, initially clenched into fists, shot upward to restrain her neck, as though possessed by some kind of demon. I edged closer to Lise and gently grabbed hold of her arms, then slowly removed them from her neck. The white bandage almost seemed absorbed into Lise's pale skin. There had to be some injury hidden behind it. Stop! Don't look! I won't stop. Show me. No! Contrary to her words, Lise had already released all strength from her arms, and made no attempt to resist. The bandage came off smoothly, and a dark red discolored bruise in the shape of 2 hands appeared. Along with pity, a sense of guilt, almost on the border of sorrow, welled up inside of me. If only I hadn't approached her back then. If only I hadn't wanted her to become my partner, this would never have happened to her. No, that wasn't quite right either. Just now, she was trembling in fear as she said, I won't ever sing again. Perhaps this was a regular utterance for her, or something she would mutter whenever she was disciplined by that old bastard. Whether I had involved myself with her or not, the situation might not have changed for Lise either way. Grave was just that twisted. Lise. I touched her neck as gently as I could. Lise's body shuddered in panic for an instant. It's okay. It's okay. I gingerly traced the bruise with my fingers, caressing it, then slid my hand behind her neck and pulled her into an embrace. Lise put up no resistance as she entrusted her body to mine. Lise. Liselcia. Senpai? I'm sorry. I will never allow you to get hurt again. But I'm here with you. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Instead, I tightened my embrace, in hope she would confide in me. I hoped that my feelings for her would be properly conveyed. Chris-senpai. Lise called out my name clearly this time, and wrapped her arms, which until now had been dangling along her sides, around my waist. Lise, I love you. I feel The same. In the pouring rain, we held each other tight as we exchanged numerous kisses. The rain washed away the girl's tears as well as my sins, and showed no signs of ceasing. After that, I brought Lise straight to my apartment. She was now sound asleep on my bed. I hung her drenched uniform on a hanger to dry. Wearing only a shirt, Lise was in dreamland, where no one would be able to hurt her. What happened? A lot, I guess. Forney had waited silently until Lise had fallen asleep. I was thankful for that, but I couldn't find the right words to say to her. Grave. Lise's injuries. Just trying to put those matters into words made my chest hurt. The bandage came off. There was a bruise on her neck. Yeah. Forney was probably beginning to get a vague understanding of what happened. Lise's behavior up until now. The bruise on her neck. I couldn't hide it from her, nor did I intend to. I'll explain what happened today from the beginning. I picked Forney up from her position on the windowsill and moved her to my desk. I grabbed a chair and sat down directly opposite her. I should start by telling you about Grave. I began telling Forney everything in detail. As she listened, an expression of profound sadness began to form on her face, as she gradually had less to say in return. Even so, it was my duty to tell her everything, and Forney had a right to hear it. And so I brought Lise here with me. I see. To be honest, I'm not sure what to do from here on. I see. I might become a bit of a burden on you from now on, and I might not be able to talk to you as much anymore. Are you sure you're okay with that? If I said no, would you kick her out? Well... Just kidding. I just felt like teasing you for a bit. Of course I'm okay with it. That joke wasn't funny. It's your fault for not having faith in me. Just tell me how you want things to be. How long have we known each other by now? I know you well enough. Forney, thanks. Don't thank me. Anyway, if Lise wakes up, I'll be sure not to show myself too much. No need for that. I just won't be able to answer you as much anymore, that's all. I can't exactly intrude on you two lovebirds. Forney. Am I wrong? No. Then don't worry about it, I don't mind. You don't need to show such consideration for me either. If you really think so, then I'll stay. Then stay. I won't! Even if you're fine with it, Lise surely won't be. Why would Lise mind you being there? She wouldn't mind you being... Oh, wait. She wouldn't mind you minding me being there. Say what you will, but I know you won't be able to ignore me. This is for the best. Listen now. It's final. I will not hear you out. See ya! Forney! I held my breath as I looked behind me, hoping that shout hadn't woken up Lise. But Lise was breathing steadily, still sound asleep. I let out a sigh of relief. Forney, if you want to come out, you're free to do so any time, okay? I whispered, convinced that Forney would still be able to hear it. Lise was still sleeping. I set up my foretell right next to her and had been playing Lise's piece. I put my affection for her into my tones. Oh, Lise. I instantly averted my eyes. Aside from the cotton blanket wrapped around her body, all that was covering Lise was one of my shirts. I'll be going to the front door, so please put on some clothes. Yes. I promptly did as I said and closed my eyes. I could hear the patter of Lise's footsteps on the floor behind me, followed by the sound of her taking the uniform from the hanger and changing into it. After having silently held my breath for a while, the girl addressed me. Senpai, I'm done. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for today. Don't mention it. But, anyway, never go back there again, alright? Chris-senpai, I'm not your upperclassman anymore. I could probably no longer go back to that school. But, don't worry about it. But, Lisa, you're probably in the same boat. I don't mind at all, but senpai, you... Call me by my name. Like I said, I'm no longer your upperclassman. Besides, I'd be happier if you called me by name. Chris. Thanks. Anyway, don't worry about me. As long as you are by my side, I'll be fine. Chris? What is it? Chris! Lisa cried out my name and began shedding tears. Though these were not tears of sadness. After embracing her once more, I went to sit behind my foretell. Lisa, it's okay for you to sing now. Whenever you want, as much as you want. Thank you. So, would you care to perform an ensemble? Yes! It had taken a long, long time for us to finally be able to perform ensembles together once more. But during all that time, I had continued to play the foretell for her, and she had never forgotten her song. We were in such perfect harmony that one would think we had been performing together for years as real partners. Amidst the wave of music, I expressed my love for her, and she her love for me. In the place of words, we continued to make music instead. Again and again. As often as time allowed it. It was a time of pure happiness for both of us. Good night. Are you sure this is all right? It's fine. I can't have you sleep on the floor. Then, don't worry about me. You should get some sleep. Okay, Lisa said a bit dejectedly. I wasn't sure why, but at least she seemed to consent for now. Good night. Good night. Tired from singing, Lisa fell asleep quickly. After confirming this, I went and checked whether the doors had been locked properly. There was no guarantee that Grave wouldn't come after us. A lock and 2 chains were what protected us from the outside world. It seemed a bit unreliable, but there was nothing else we could do. Stepping back into the room, I lowered myself on the blanket spread out on the floor and stared at the ceiling. Chris! Forney made an unexpected appearance on top of the desk. What's up? Want to hear my initial impression of Lisa singing? I do. A striking resemblance, I thought. It was something Torta once told me as well. Or, more accurately, what she once tried to tell me. I think so too. I don't think you do. Huh? I meant she bears a striking resemblance to you, Chris. Leaving just that, Forney disappeared. As I opened my eyes, I was confused upon noticing the change of scenery. Even though I'd managed to sleep on a blanket, I was not accustomed to this sleeping arrangement. My entire body ached when I attempted to stretch. Lisa was still sound asleep on my bed. Her face was peaceful, as though yesterday's events had never happened. But reality wasn't so forgiving, and the responsibility partly lay on me. The bandage wrapped around her neck was in clear view. Whenever I lay my eyes on it, I was overcome with an indescribable sense of guilt. I wanted to call out to her, but swallowed my words. She needed her sleep right now. It seemed like sleeping was almost all she had done since yesterday, but that didn't matter. At this point, I could no longer let Lisa go to school. I heard Grave had made considerable monetary donations to the Institute, giving him a lot of influence there. If she went to school, Grave would learn of this fact soon enough. Besides, it worried me that he hadn't approached us at all since yesterday. At any rate, he probably wouldn't continue to ignore us like this. I figured that if he wanted to, he could accuse me of kidnapping her. Lise was still officially his daughter, and we were still registered at school. However, for now, I had to think about the immediate future. I was worried about what Grave would do, but more importantly, I had to decide on our current course of action. Until Grave decided to act, there was nothing I could do of my own. It wasn't like I could devise all sorts of countermeasures right now. I was gazing at Lise's sleeping face with those thoughts running through my mind. Morning. After blinking a few times, Lise got up. She seemed bewildered at first, but quickly returned my greeting upon realizing her situation. Good morning. Morning. I actually stayed overnight, huh? Lise muttered in an incredulous voice, as though she was living out some kind of dream. Even so, I couldn't forget what happened yesterday, nor did I want to pretend it never happened. I kept smiling at Lise, fully intent on taking responsibility for my actions. That's right. Anyhow, it looks like you slept well. Yes, but what should we do now? We'll be living here together from now on. We have to arrange a couple of things for you first. That surely wasn't what she wanted to hear. But despite that knowledge, it was the only answer I had to offer. The graduation recital, Lise's family, we couldn't just sweep these issues aside. Then again, the graduation recital could probably be ignored since I wasn't too concerned about not being able to graduate. But at this point in time, I couldn't yet state with confidence that it would be the best option for us. The feelings with which I had initially decided to make Lise my partner was still there. So right now, dealing with Grave was our main issue. But depending on how Grave would act, there were many possible futures in store for us. Perhaps I had already been expelled from school, but it was possible that I hadn't either. The same went for Lise. It also didn't seem implausible that he had lost all interest in his runaway orphan daughter and would ignore us completely. The people in her house would have noticed her not coming home for a full day. Yet nobody had approached us as of yet. In the end, all I could do was speculate. So I changed my attention to more worldly matters, those being the basic necessities for living. Arrange things for me? You don't need to go to that extent. Please, I don't mind. We don't know how long you'll end up staying, but even if it is only for a few days, there's a lot of stuff to take care of. But Chris, what am I to do in return? Lise faltered, perhaps wanting to call me senpai again. I didn't let her stay here because I wanted something in return. Don't get me wrong, Lise. I'm not asking anything from you. I just wanted to do something for you. Chris. In any case, I couldn't afford to hand her over to Grave. While Grave was still her father, if only according to the family register, his so-called discipline was nothing short of abuse. I didn't know yet whether my own actions were right or not. But seeing Lise smile, I couldn't imagine I had done anything wrong. Sure, I had some misgivings about the situation. Even so, having her live here for a while was all I could do. And to support such a lifestyle, many additional things were required. We had come to the shopping district along the main street to buy the necessary provisions. The weather wasn't that bad today, so we didn't bring umbrellas. I was a bit worried about Lise on that point, but she had pleaded rather vehemently that she didn't need one. While she'd been rather reserved about things at first, Lise's expression gradually loosened up as we assembled more and more things. I suppose we have all we need for now. Can you think of anything else? No, this is fine. I've imposed on you enough as it is. As Lise said, we had most of the basic necessities. We could buy the rest once there was a need to. There was still one problem left. Lise's clothes. Lise was here to be away from school. I thought of letting Lise wear my own clothes, but those were a bit too large for her small frame. And even if we did laundry every day, one set of clothes just wouldn't be enough for her. Chris? I was just thinking for a bit about what you could wear. That's a good point. I was never one to squander money, but I didn't exactly have much savings either. I had wanted to keep things to the bare necessities, but then, well, if you're okay with it. Huh? Well, for sweaters and stuff, if you lend me yours, we won't need to spend money. If you're okay with that, then I don't particularly mind. Then let's do that. What remained was underwear and the like. I couldn't accompany her for that. Since I didn't know how much it would cost, I lent my wallet to Lisa and left it up to her. Okay, I'll be right back. Lisa embarrassingly entered the clothing store. I waited for her outside, trying my best not to look inside. What were we to do now? It was a given for Lisa to feel unsettled about things. After all, it took the most out of myself just to keep up this pretension as well. But if only for this moment. And when tomorrow comes, if only for today. That was probably what we would end up thinking day after day. But it was all we could do for now. Sorry for the wait. Lisa came running up to me carrying a small bag. Absorbed in the temporary illusion of having returned to a normal life, she had an incredibly cheerful expression on her face. With my spirits lifted by her smile, we walked back through the rain to my apartment. Ensemble after ensemble. Seemingly blissful times. I wondered if we had achieved what we had always desired. Forney hadn't shown herself since yesterday. She was being considerate of us, but I was starting to miss her presence. My feelings for Forney were obviously different from what I felt for Lise, but what I used to feel for Arietta. But that made my feelings for her all the more difficult to explain. It was different from what I felt for family or a close friend. Roommate was close, but it really wasn't something that could be explained in shallow terms. Forney was Forney. As stupid as it sounded, it was the only way to describe her. What are you looking at? Huh? Just outside. So you were watching the rain? I suppose. I couldn't tell Lise about Forney. If Forney disappeared in a whiff right now, there would be no proof she had ever been here, as if she had merely been an illusion all along. The only traces attesting to her existence would reside in my fickle memories. So, if I forgot about her, would Forney cease to exist? No, that wasn't the case. Even if it could no longer be proven, the fact remained that she had existed here. What part of the rain were you looking at? Her curiosity piqued. Lise walked up beside me and began staring at the sky as well. A gloomy, overcast sky. It was starting to look rather foreboding. I averted my eyes from it. Who knows? I have no idea. You're strange. I know. We both laughed, and with that, the day came to a close. I'm going to change now. Okay, I'll look the other way, so let me know when you're done. Okay. To be sure, I closed my eyes as well as I waited for her to sign. We didn't have the resources to buy pajamas either, so she ended up having to wear mine as well. While there was no problem with that when she was in bed with the sheets covering up her body, it would be detrimental to my mental health if the collar was too wide around the chest area. I'm done. You can look now. Are you going to sleep right now? When I turned around, Lise was already lying in bed. Yes, but are you going to sleep on the floor again, Chris? That's the plan. Why don't we sleep together? No, that's not a good idea. Why? Well, just because. Don't you think this bed is rather big for one person? It just seems like that because you're small. It would get cramped if I got in. But isn't it warmer that way? Lise, I'm going to sleep on the floor, okay? Chris, can I ask you a favor? A favor? I'm still a bit scared. I'm not used to being alone. I'm right here, aren't I? What makes you think you're alone? Because you were looking so far off into the distance. Huh? You were thinking about something else just now, weren't you? I want to feel you close to me. Won't you sleep with me? I had been thinking about something else. It was just as Lise said. But Lise still had priority over all else for me. That fact would never change. But if this was what Lise really wanted... Come. Lise stretched out her arm and drew me closer. Just like I said, the bed was way too cramped for us both. I had to move closer to her to prevent myself from falling off the edge. It's a bit cramped, huh? I told you so. But... Lise grabbed my hand under the blanket. But we could be so close together now. Yeah, we could be close together. That fact alone managed to soothe my heart immensely. I could forget my worries until tomorrow morning at least. And so another day passed, the accumulation of which would shape our future. By the time we realized this, it would already have become the past. This moment of certainty could only exist right now. So I wanted to cherish it with all of my heart. Amidst the pleasant feeling of Lise's body heat being passed to me through her warm hand, I soon fell into a slumber. When I awoke in the morning, Lise's face was right in front of me. Lately, every day had begun that way. Morning. Good morning. Smiling, Lise had made no attempt to get out of bed. We could probably stay like this for 10-20 minutes on end. This was already the 5th day of us imitating a homely lifestyle. I felt there was little meaning in keeping up with the day count. We would get up in the morning, have breakfast, do ensembles until noon. Then after lunch, we would go back to our endless procedures. I would try to teach Lise how to cook, as clumsy as my own culinary skills were, since she had never done it before. Such was the jovial, aimless life we were living. Growing impatient, I had attempted to break free from this cycle many times, but in the end I could never bring myself to follow through. We should have some breakfast. Yes. Shall I help you make it today? Sure. Lise had become a lot more cheerful. A life without Grave had brought so much change to her. Or rather, you could say that Grave had crafted Lise to the miserable girl she was when I first met her. Is something the matter? Nah, just thinking. You sure think a lot, don't you? Lise said playfully, having become completely at ease around me. Could it be that she honestly didn't realize? That our current lifestyle was an uncertain one that could come crumbling down at the snap of a finger? Although if she did realize, and was able to enjoy this time as much as she did in spite of it, that was probably a very fortunate outcome. Outside, the incessant downpour of rain continued. Time was slowly but surely progressing. The graduation recital was on Friday this week. Whether to attend or not was still undecided as of now. No expulsion letters ever arrived from school. Grave never came to take Lise back. And now graduation was right around the corner. Chris, it's gotten pretty late. Yeah. Let us sing once again tomorrow. Sure. That was the only thing I was able to answer to sincerely. I had to make up my mind soon. The time to cease passively was now. I had to face reality and mold our future with my own two hands. Good night. Yeah, good night. Tomorrow is finally the graduation recital, I said to Lise, if only to have something to talk about. You're right. I hadn't yet told Lise about how I was thinking it might be better for us to leave town. We couldn't keep loitering around this place forever. However, even if we did leave, I had no idea where to go. I had a home to return to, a place I could live. However, Lise had nothing left. She could not find repose at either school or her house, what with Graves' occupation. The only places left were where Lise was able to be happy were that old school building and my room. I wanted her to depend on me. However, the concept of being able to live together like this forever was but an illusion. The time for my graduation had come, and I would have to leave this town sooner or later. Whether I could graduate or not, my parents were supporting me financially, so I couldn't stay in this apartment. If I asked them, they would probably be willing to support me for another year. But I could never ask them to support the lifestyle I'm currently living. It would be a valid option to start working in this town, but if we did that, I had the feeling we would never be able to escape from Graves' looming presence. Which was why I'd been thinking of running away. But I'd yet to tell Lise about this. More importantly, despite pondering the option, I hadn't yet been able to gather the determination to actually carry it out. But if Lise wanted it as well, then that might provide me with the necessary resolve. Shall we get up? Playing the fortel had become a little tiring. While it was still fun to do ensembles together day in, day out, I couldn't help but feel we had lost our objective in life. As long as Lise would sing for me with that smile on her face, I didn't mind. But the will to change our current pattern of life, if only by a little bit, kept eating away at the back of my mind. Do you want to go back to school? I asked Lise, despite fearing her answer a bit inside. No. Thankfully, Lise gave the response I had expected. I wanted to ask her what she desired, but now it seemed she was depending entirely on me. All the more reason for me to let her know of my plans. However, I just couldn't bring myself to. What are we going to do now? It was the first time I put my worries into words. Lise had asked me the same thing many times. But in her case, they were questions of little significance, like what to eat or whether or not to do an ensemble. Although it might not have been out of the question that it was simply how her worries were manifested. Then, shall we sing? I fully expected her to finish her sentence with something along those lines. And I would secretly feel happy about it, as it assured me that we'd be able to keep living like this for at least another day. But, what do you want to do now, Chris? Huh? You mean like an ensemble? No, I mean from now on. What are we going to do from tomorrow on? Lise. Chris, isn't that what's been on your mind all day lately? Yeah, I might have considered stuff like that once. In fact, I had been considering it just seconds ago. But I gave her a vague answer on purpose, because I was still unsure about whether or not it was a good idea to tell her now. Then, will you tell me about it? I've been kind of waiting for it, you know. For me to tell you what I think? Yes, of course. Of course, I have a lot of fun singing, and even now, I feel it would be great if we could live like this forever. But I understand that it isn't possible. I thought this was the case from seeing you slip into deep thought every once in a while. But my only home is here with you. That's why I was waiting for you to tell me what to do. Today you seemed even more troubled than usual, so I decided to take the initiative. I see. Lisa had probably been thinking about this for a long time. There wasn't a trace of hesitation in her voice. In fact, she seemed happy she was able to say it. Then, is it okay if I tell you what I was thinking? Yes! I want to leave this town. I still have no idea where to go, so you'll probably think I'm stupid for suggesting this, but... Not at all. You've been thinking about this all the time, haven't you? But if we left this town, how would we keep on living? Well, it would be great to be able to live doing the things we love. But that is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. So, if you liked it, leave a like down below and don't forget to subscribe. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye!